We're all here, so we'd like to take an hour of your time today to help you in orientation and to kind of work through this so we all know the task we've all volunteered to do. This is the kickoff of our first meeting for the Fargo Police Chief Selection Committee. We appreciate your interest in serving on this committee and your willingness to engage with the city and Fargo. It's an important selection of the community's next police chief. In an effort to be transparent, this will be on TV and throughout the community. Bear that in mind when you make any statements or talk, just because you are going to be seen all over. As Deputy Mayor Pipcore and the City Commission and I recognize how important it is to have a comprehensive assessment of candidates for this key position for our community. Traditionally, we have formed selection committees of approximately 10 members, including a handful of community members. And as you know, this committee is 15 members at this time. 4 of you were selected from a pool of over 100, and you are representing the greater community in that regards. And it was difficult decisions to be made because there were great applications, there were great things said. So you might just pat yourself on the back. What you wrote was great, so it helped you to get to your selected position, and we hope you embrace that. We also are fortunately to engage the Native American Commission has named a representative to us, as well as the Human Relations Commission. So we have tried to add a little bit more depth to who we've asked to be on this commission to help us out. And our 2 community partners are from the schools and from Park Board, and they also represent a big segment of our group, so we felt that it would be important to have a committee that's diverse, inclusive, and engaged in our community. We think you all bring a unique and important perspective to this process in selecting the next police chief. As you know, we have 2 police officers with us as well, an officer and a sergeant. We traditionally have always had somebody from the police force to be on this committee. They can help us in the selection, but they can't come to the final selection because we all come to the final selection of who the chief is that we choose. But their expectations, what we'd like them to do is sometimes get feedback from their department and or help us if we have questions about policing that we don't quite understand and we want to get that. But this isn't a policy committee, it's only really a committee that's going to select a police chief. As a key stakeholder in this process, you all have an equal voice in determining who our next police chief will be. Following today's meeting, you all individually will review and rate the police chief applications to determine who will advance beyond the first round. This committee will take all the candidates that we have at this present time, and we will rank them. Those people would be given values or points. Whoever the top point getters go on to the next round. It's a way which Joe will explain a little bit how we come to that, and there's a poll that you have to do. But for the next week, we'll be fairly busy for all of us to review all the candidates and try to figure out who feel we want to advance. You're going to be rating the candidates, and all the committee's ratings are given equal weight. So I don't get more weight than I'm a mayor. I get the same weight as all of you in your point selection or how you choose those people. The collective ratings are collectively what happens. When we picked Chief Todd at the time we did our selection, he was given a certain amount of points. His point selection came out on the top. He was the candidate we selected. We'll do no different on this. So we'll be you have a binder in front of you that you'll have the agenda for the meeting, and we'll be discussing the overall selection process today and go through it. We'll also go through how you'll use the computer application to vote. What I'd like to do now is just start with each of you just doing a brief introduction of yourself to the committee. Not everybody knows each other, and if you could just kind of tell, a little background, how long you've been in the community, maybe what type of work you do so people understand that, and a small idea of who you are and where you're from. So I'm Mayor Tim Mahoney. I've been in my position since 2014 as mayor. I have selected a previous chief of police when we was Police Chief Todd. I feel we have made great progress in our police force. We are getting more progressive, and I look very much forward to how we're going to pick our next chief and where that chief is going to take us. Dave?
I'm Dave Pepcorn. I'm a city commissioner, and I'm a 1979 graduate of Fargo North, so I appreciate the superintendent's shirt today. And I was on the search for Dave Todd as well, and so I think we did a great job the last time, and I'm very thankful Jill is involved because she was also involved last time, and And I think our human resources department, they are a great addition, and they help us steer the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pepcorn. I'm Jill Manette, Director of Human Resources. I've been with the city for 16 years in Human Resources. Jen and I will be serving as facilitators throughout the process.
I'm Jen Crater. I have been with the city since December of 2016, so not too long, but the police department is one of 9 that I service within the city, so they're definitely my biggest and most fun. So I look forward to this process and working with all of you.
Hi, I'm Dave Leaker. I'm the Executive Director for the Fargo Park District. I've been in that position for about 6 months now, and I've been with the Park District for 21 years, so I appreciate the opportunity to sit on this committee.
Good afternoon. My name is Rupak Gandhi. I serve as a superintendent for Fargo Public Schools. I will be starting my 3rd year as a superintendent at Fargo, and I've lived here in this community for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Nidal Omar. I've been in this community for about 40 years. I own my own business for the past 30 years, and I'm honored to be selected as part of this committee here.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tanya Graywind. I have lived in this community my entire life. I've been in education for about 16 years, and I am currently an assistant superintendent at the North Dakota Center for Distance Education.
Hi, my name is Whitney Liedall. I moved here in 2005 and attended NDSU for nursing. Been in healthcare for a little over 10 years. I'm also very involved with my faith community and at home part-time with my 3 kids.
Hi, my name is Jason Boynton. I've been in Fargo since 2006, so about 14 years. I'm a professor of mathematics at North Dakota State University, play in a few bands around town, and try to raise money for food insecurity.
Those are honorable causes, thank you. My name is Jane Pettinger. I've been a resident of Fargo most of my life as well. I've been on the Civil Service Commission for countless terms under 3 different mayors, helped select a number of different police chiefs in a number of different communities, as well as the current fire chief for the city of Fargo. I'm an HR professional. I do teaching and consulting.
Hi there, my name is Lenore King. I am the co-chairperson for the Native American Commission. I have been working for Community Options since 2007, and then I started working in Fargo at 2009, and I've been living in Fargo for 6-7 years now.
Yeah, my name is Matur Alier. I'm a social worker for Cass County Social Services. I'm here on behalf of Fargo Human Relations Commission. I have lived here for 7 years.
Hi, I'm Jessica White. I've been up here since 2003. I moved from Colorado, and I'm stuck here. I have been with the police department since 2008. Most of my time has been as a patrol officer, but most recently I'm ending my 5-year tour as a downtown resource officer.
Mike Sandin with the Fargo Police Department. I've worked for Fargo since 2007. I've lived in Fargo since 1998 when I came to town to go to NDSU.
Good afternoon, Michael Redlinger. I'm the Assistant City Administrator. I've been with the City of Fargo for about 4 years. Previous to that, I was the City Manager in Moorhead, where I also participated in one previous police chief search process. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you being here.
Hi, my name is Bruce Grubb. I'm Fargo City Administrator. I've been employed with the City of Fargo since September of 1989. So I arrived at the tail of the 80s. But over that 31-year period, I've served in various capacities with the city and served on a number of selection committees for department heads and feel honored to be on this one again. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So what we're first going to do is just try to give a brief overview of the police department, just so you have a little understanding of the organization, how it runs, and what happens. So when the new police chief is, that's what they're going to inherit, and that's what they're going to have to go forward with. Sergeant Tom Shaw is going to give us this overview, and I'm just hopeful that will be helpful to you as we go forward of understanding what the chief will be taking on. Tom?
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate you inviting me here today. I appreciate your willingness to participate in this committee. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of what the Fargo Police Department is, what its divisions are, and what each division's responsibilities are. Currently, we have 181 sworn staff. So when I say sworn staff, those are peace officers licensed through the state of North Dakota. Our sworn staff consists of command staff, so our chief and deputy chiefs and lieutenants, sergeants like myself and Sergeant Sandin, patrol officers, detectives, and administrative staff. We have 24 civilians currently. Civilians play a large role in how our department operates on a day-to-day basis. They fill roles such as police support specialist, office associate, evidence management, quartermaster, our PIO or public information officer, and our community support officers. So our department is broke down into 3 different divisions. We have field services, investigations, and our administrative division. Field Services Division is the largest group of officers within our department, and it provides patrol services through the city of Fargo. Patrol officers respond to calls for service from the community to include emergency and non-emergency runs. This is an overall beat map of how our city is divided. Currently, our city is divided up into 4 districts. Within each district, we have 3 beats. Each district is led by a lieutenant, each beat is led by a sergeant, and a patrol officer is assigned to each beat for every shift every day. Our field services shifts are shown below. Our day shift runs from 0700 to 1700, military time, that's 5 p.m. Evening shift runs from about 3 in the afternoon to 1:30 in the morning, and our night shift runs from 10 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock in the morning. Each one of those shifts are divided up into 2 separate squads. As far as investigations, we have many different groups of detectives who are part of that division. I've given you an example of some of those different groups here. We have personal crimes, property crimes, narcotics, street crimes, crimes against children, human trafficking, intelligence, and sex offender registration. On average, our detectives are working anywhere from 8 to 20 cases each at any given time. The cases have a nexus in patrol or other self-initiated activity within the investigations division. In 2019, detectives completed nearly 2,000 cases, and that's just the cases that investigations closed. That's not counting what we started in patrol. Unlike CSI, a vast majority of these cases are not solved in 1 hour. They go on for days, and weeks, and months, and potentially years. As far as our administrative division goes, there are many tasks that are incumbent upon that division. We basically support the rest of the department. Currently, I'm part of this division, so I have a little bit of insight as to what we do. One of the big components for the administrative division is training. We provide training to our own officers and continuing education throughout the year. 2020 is our inaugural year for our very own police academy that's certified to the North Dakota Post Board. Another part of our administrative division is the PTO program. PTO program is our training program for new officers that we've recently hired. We are in the process of hiring 4 officers at this time that are currently in our summer academy. We also have the records department, which I am a part of. We manage all incoming and outgoing information from the Fargo Police Department. Part of the administrative division is also our community engagement team. The CET is made up of officers who provide outreach programs for many different people throughout the community. They have partnered with leaders and businesses to build programs enhancing the relationship between the Fargo Police Department and citizens of our community. The CET has a number of different roles within its group. We have a cultural liaison officer, community trust officers, school resource officers, and a park officer. I want to end with our common purpose for the police department. The Fargo Police Department is dedicated to providing services that are driven by genuine care of the community, each other, and the laws we are trusted to uphold. We strive to achieve our common purpose by embracing 4 quality standards: safety, courtesy, empathy, and trust. Thank you.
Tom, thank you very much. But one thing I'd just like you to comment on is that you as a police officer, we have seen a lot of change in the last 5 years. I think Dave and I have seen some changes in community involvement and community policing officers. I think just for the committee, can you explain a little bit that there have been programs now in which federal government has really pushed community involvement by our police officers? Could you just comment the changes that you've seen? Let's just paraphrase it over the 5 years of how our department is maybe different than it was 5 years ago.
Sure. I think one of the things that I can lead with in that regards is our community engagement team. It started fairly small 5 years ago with a couple of our officers going out to do outreach programs specifically for youth. Over the last 5 years, they've expanded that not only to youth, but other members of the community. They have highly engaged businesses and other organizations and community members throughout our city to assist in a partnership to build relationships with the citizens of Fargo. One example I can give of the work that they've been doing is swimming lessons for youth. One of the incidents that occurred a number of years ago is we had some young children drown in the area, and our community engagement team recognized a need to be able to instruct youth on how to swim. Our community engagement team went out, they worked with businesses, they worked with places that house swimming pools, organized times for these kids to get swimming lessons. They organized transportation to and from home to get them there, to help these kids not only to learn a life skill like swimming, but to build and bolster that enhanced relationship between our department and the city as well. And that's a small example of what those guys go out and do on a regular basis.
So one of the things I want you all to understand is the police department is a dynamic department that has constant change. So one of the things we see, and even when the new police chief comes in, there will be a dynamic of what we want to go next, where we want to go. This committee will partially guide that a little bit as what we expect or where we maybe are thinking when we want to go forward. Now, when we get into these types of issues, there's open meetings, there's closed meetings, there's a variety of different things that the law has. And we have to be respectful of our candidates. So some people might be applying and they could put their present job at jeopardy. So there's a confidentiality that we have to do as committee members. So I'm going to have, is it Joe, you can explain that? Explain to you the confidentiality and what you'll be signing for that, because we really can't leak any of the candidates to the press. We have to be very respectful of that.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the mayor indicated, we'll be discussing the section of your binder that includes information on confidentiality. One of the first responsibilities that you all will have as members of this selection committee will be to complete an individual review of the applications. We have received 26 applicants for this position. So in a few minutes, we'll be talking about the requirements for the position and some of those specific requirements that you'll be looking for when you begin your review, as well as a demonstration on how to use the platform where you'll access that information. So, as the mayor indicated, you'll have access to their applications, their resumes, cover letters, any other documents that they've provided that include both professional and personal information. So it's important that these documents are confidential and remain confidential indefinitely. Even after this selection process is completed, our finalist applications, I should say, may be released, but only by city officials under an open records request. So in addition to the confidentiality of the documents that you receive, we're asking that all committee members refrain from trying to contact the applicants or from their, contacting their current employers. Again, as the mayor indicated, some of our applicants may or may not have discussed their applicant status with us, with their current employer. We want to ensure we don't do anything to jeopardize their current employment and let them have that conversation with their current employer. So Jen and I, as members of the HR team, will handle all communications with our applicants. So again, in your confidentiality section of your binder, there are 2 copies of the acknowledgement, and we ask that following the meeting that you take a minute to read through that acknowledgement. There's a copy for you to sign and leave with us, and then a copy for you to take that's yours to keep. And we really appreciate your acknowledgement in this shared responsibility that we have to maintain the confidentiality of our applicants throughout the process and following the process as well. The city's Assistant City Attorney, Nancy Morris, is here with us today, and she is available to answer any questions that you have either later during our question portion or following the meeting. Nancy, do you just want to raise your hand for the community members as well? So again, she's happy to answer any questions that you might have when you have a chance to read through that agreement. So our next step then, we'd like to talk a little bit about the police chief position itself. And in the police chief position section of your binder, you have a copy of the original job posting, as well as a copy of the job description. But we just today want to highlight a couple of the requirements for the job and some of the key education and experience requirements that you'll be looking for as you complete your individual review and ultimately your ratings of these candidates. So starting off with some of the minimum requirements, the position does require a bachelor's degree in law enforcement, criminal justice, police science, or a related field. The position requires 10 or more years of progressively responsible police experience, including at least 4 years at the command staff level experience. Command level is a little bit difficult to identify just by title because structures in different agencies can vary greatly. So when you're looking for that 4+ years of command level experience, we're typically looking for someone who has led a division within their agency or has served as part of their agency's highest level leadership team. You'll also note that there is an equivalency in the requirement, equivalent combination of education and experience sufficient to successfully perform the essential duties. So an example of this would be if we had an applicant who holds an associate's degree, but they've served, for 20 years as a police chief in a department with similar size and scope, you might still consider that applicant as qualified based on that equivalency. So that's just an example of the experience that you might run into as you're reviewing these applications. In terms of preferences for the position, there is a preference to have a candidate with a master's degree or a major command academy. And examples of the major command academies would be the FBI National Academy, the Southern Police Institute, or SPI, and Northwestern Staff and Command College. And those are listed out, again, in your PowerPoint, so you can reference those as you are reviewing the applications. The final requirement, a valid North Dakota Peace Officer license must be acquired upon hire. So just want to point that out, that it's not a requirement as a candidate, but if we had someone selected from outside of the state who's not licensed in North Dakota, they would need to acquire that license upon hire. So again, the full job description is included in your binder, and that will serve as a good reference as you are reviewing applicants. Are there any questions at this time related to the requirements for the police chief position?
Mr. Pipcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question. So there was 26 applicants. Were there any already eliminated do you do any of that, that they don't meet the basic? Have you done that yet?
Yeah, so we have completed an initial review, and when we email the information out about the review, we will note our findings on 2 of the candidates that we believe don't quite meet those minimum requirements. They're still available there for you all to review because we want to make sure you have a voice in this as well, but we will note the candidates that we believe fall below the minimum requirement.
Jason.
Are you open to adding any preferred qualifications? Or is this like the minimum and preferred, are those like set in stone?
So typically, because we are posting a position off of a job description, and that is what our applicants have self-selected that they're qualified or non-qualified, we normally, for minimum requirements, would stick to what's in the job description. But if there are other experiences or qualifications that you believe are important in the assessment of the candidate, we can absolutely consider that. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about some of those opportunities in just a minute. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Just one additional note. Once you begin reviewing the applicants, if you run into any questions, Jen and I are happy to answer any questions that you have as you go. The questions might come up when you're actually reviewing the applications.
Sometimes there's questions on experience, or you'll have some questions, FBI Academy or something to that equivalent. So don't feel if you want to call in and ask, because the other thing, once you've rated them, you can't go back. You're kind of done with that rating. So I'd say if you had any question about a candidate, please ask before you rate them, so you know that, okay, this is okay or not okay. And then the other thing, everybody gets to see everybody else's ratings, so it's a very open way of looking at things of what you're thinking or what's going on.
If I could just add a comment on that. We all have each other's email addresses, but if we email all of us, or more than, I think the magic number is 3, it's a public record. So if you email a question to me, or I email a question to you one-on-one, that's totally legit, but once more than 3 or more of us are involved, that becomes public record. And I mean, not that we're gonna email anything weird to each other anyway, but just so you know that kind of correspondence as a group is automatically part of the public domain.
So you can ask Jen and Jill questions you have about candidates, and that's fine. And I thank you for remembering that, Jane, because sometimes people get each other's emails and start going around. That's oftentimes called a meeting in progress, that you're starting to communicate to other people and you're actually building some type of consensus. And that's not allowed by open law. So we have to respect that. So this is one of those things where you truly go through all the candidates yourself, figure out who you like and who you don't.
All right. So my person is going to be going through NeoGov, or applicant tracking system. So once we're done here today, I'm going to set all of you up with a profile in NeoGov. Once I set that up, you'll get an email notification asking you to go in and change your password. Once, just note that you only have 24 hours to do that from the time that you receive the email. If you go beyond that, just reach out to me and I can resend you that information. Tab 6 in there called NeoGov in your binder is what we'll kind of walk through here next, which goes step by step with what the application looks like. Just gotta log in here quick. One thing to note, your email address is always going to be your username, so you'll that will be easy enough to remember, hopefully. All right. Okay, so once you get logged in, it's going to bring you to this main screen here, which is also called the dashboard. So this is exactly what you guys are all going to see when you log in. You'll see here the police chief. This is just a test, so this isn't the real applications. It's just test for now. But so this is, you'll click on the job application title itself, and it'll bring you to this next screen here, which will outline all the candidates listed there. There's several ways to go through here. You can't break anything, so feel free to click around. But one of the easiest ways when you have multiple people and you've already done some reviewing and stuff is click on this Unreviewed tab. Once you're there, you can click on all the candidates will be listed, and you just simply click on the candidate's name that you want to start reviewing. What you see before you now is the actual application itself. So when people apply for the position, they upload their resume oftentimes, and with that, the fields become pre-populated. So it's just their general information, their work history, education, and all of that. So you can either scroll through, on the side here with the mouse, or over here are icons that take you directly to those specific areas. So the first one here is going to be your work history. Then it goes to education. This is just other information. So if they have some type of certification or any type of special skills, it would be listed under here. And then the attachments here is probably where you're going to go most often, because down here you'll see a resume, cover letter, references, anything that they may have attached. And you'll notice too when you're reviewing that some people attached 100 things and some people attached one. So just know if you only see one attachment, that's because that's all they submitted, so nothing's wrong there. Also at the top here is this question section. So this is, in addition to their demographics and whatnot, the questions that are asked on the application. So probably the most pertinent to you guys here would be the veteran's preference, whether or not they're claiming that. And then down here where it lists any, your highest level of education, that's kind of a quick way to look at what education that they have, you know, if they meet that minimum requirement. And then also the years of relevant experience. Now that, of course, you'll want to cross-reference with their application and their resume, because some people, you know, some people say they have 5 years, but really when you look at their resume, it's 10 years. So just kind of keep that in mind. And over on the right side here is where the actual rating will be. Sorry. So you'll see here it's a score, a star rating, if you will. So it starts at half a point, so you can go anywhere from 0.5 to 5 points for the max. One thing when you're doing your initial review, what I would recommend is writing comments in this section. And the reason why I say that is because, like Dr. Mahoney or Mayor Mahoney had said earlier, once you submit your rating, you can't go back and change it. Unless you reach out to me, then I can reset it. But the intent is for you to rate it and leave it at that rating. So if you want your first review go through, they have this degree, they have this this skill set, this experience in command staff, and write those comments in here. It'll help you in your secondary review of your applicants. Another thing to note here too is that as you guys are rating, all of the raters see everybody's ratings and comments. So just keep that in mind. Don't write anything inappropriate. Not that you would, but you just want to make sure that you keep that in mind. And try to when you're going through this too, it's going to be hard, I know, but as people are rating, for you not to become biased or subjective to what they're rating, or to really try to keep an open mind and use your own judgment. It can be difficult to do sometimes, but it's a good practice to keep in mind. So whether you just write comments or you do your rating, you just simply hit submit, and then it comes over. If you do the rating, it won't allow you to change it, like I said. But if you just do write comments, like you can just type in here, comments, whoops, helps if I spell, whoops. And then you hit submit, and you'll see that it'll say it was successfully done. You X out of here. And then to get back to the candidate screen, you simply just hit cancel. And then you can come back over here. And if I click back in my name again here, you'll see my notes are still there. And then if I go ahead with the rating and I hit submit again, it'll say it was successful. And then when we come back and I cancel out of here, you'll see that it's no longer under unreviewed because I reviewed it, and it's going to be over here. And you'll see the rating there. And then the average score, so that's important because as you all are rating, that's going to update as you guys go, as more people add information there. So any questions about that? Yes.
Go ahead, Jason.
So other committee members can see what we?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, like, if I can see someone else's rating, you did mention something about influence?
Right.
So I suppose that, I feel like that's a little bit harder to do if you can see someone else's rating.
Right.
You're just asking us to be like.
Can we turn that off?
No.
No, it's just part of NeoGov, yeah.
Just part of the system.
Then you'd have to be disciplined just not to look at anybody else's rating.
Okay.
The other thing, it has to be in confidence, because I can't say, Jason, I saw you rated this guy lower than me. You must not liked him or something, So it's one of those where you have to be careful what you do in confidentiality. So we will take the 26, come down to 8 candidates. Those 8 candidates we will then interview virtually. So what we're gonna do is whoever gets the highest points will come to 8. We are gonna try to get down to 3 or 4 for final interviews. The final interviews will be in person. So the first cut basically is to get to what we think would be our 8 top candidates. What that helps us do is if we cut it too short, too quick, you really haven't even interviewed them. And they may do horribly in the interview and you may not like them at all, but they look good on paper. So that's what the idea behind that first ranking is. But you can see, I mean, if you absolutely don't like anybody, that'd be a 1. But it really, if you're a high ranker, 5-4, 5-4, 5-4, it's going to take a little while to differentiate our candidates. If you see somebody you absolutely don't like, please put 1 on there because then you know they're going to be at the minimum amount of ranking.
And I'll say this to put my own mind at ease. This first initial pass through is very objective, right? Like they either have this qualification or they don't. And if they do, they get a point. If they don't get a point.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe this is not as bad as I thought it was 2 seconds ago.
No, my understanding is your first review here is going to determine the top 8 to bring in for that second
Yes,
round. So
but-
you're going to want to rate it not just on the minimum qualifications, but their experience and what they can bring to the job, according to not just the minimum requirements, but the preferred experience listed within the job description.
Those things are pretty subjective.
Yes.
So maybe there won't be much room to, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And just to add clarification there too, with the 1 through 5 rating, as Mayor and Jen had indicated, it's really a range of ratings. So likely the candidates that you really believe based on their experience, you would like to see them advance to the next round. Likely they're going to be at the higher end of that rating scale, perhaps a 4 or a 5. Your people that you are concerned about whether they meet the minimums or you feel that they just don't have enough experience to lead a department of this size and scope, you might be rating them in the 1, 2, or, and your 3s might be more kind of a maybe category, right? They meet the requirements, but maybe you don't believe they possess the skills or experience to advance. So it is a 1 through 5 rating scale. So you have a bit of room to work with there.
Tanya, you had a question?
Yeah, I think you answered part of it. I was just wondering, as far as the criteria, do you have any, or will there be anything provided that will sort of help us to outline specific? I mean, we can use our own judgment, of course, but is there anything else besides the job description that will be provided that we can say, like I would like a rubric or something along those lines to help me, or do I just create that on my own?
We certainly can do that. We don't have one prepared for today, but if you think that added tool would be beneficial, we can absolutely do that. We have the job description, and then what's included in the PowerPoint as well just highlights those requirements that we're looking for. But we can absolutely provide an additional tool if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I was just thinking with only a 5-point rating, it would be difficult to, and it would have to be used consistently if we were going to use it, obviously. So that's just something I was wondering if it existed.
Right, it does not exist right now, and of course, one of the hazards of getting it too quantified is we don't want to box you into a rating either, because this very early stage really is your opportunity to individually review. And you may see something in a candidate that if it's not included necessarily in a rubric that potentially another member,
Yeah, I probably, Jill, not do the rubric. I really want you as an individual to figure it out, because it's only 1 through 5, and you got to bring us back to 8. And I think as you start going into it, you'll figure it out. Whitney?
Are we able to open each application and look at them all before we begin rating? So we don't have to open it and then are forced to rate as soon
No,
as we look
so
at it.
that's why I was talking about with the comment section. So for your first review, I would honestly go through there, write what you think the strong points are, where you think they may be lacking in those comments, and then go back through after you've reviewed all of them, because it's difficult, especially with 26 of them. It's going to be hard to remember.
So if she fills the box and comment, it doesn't take a rating, and it leaves it as undone.
I'm sorry, what was that?
If she just puts a comment in and it goes to the next candidate, it would not put a vote in.
Correct.
But it would say she'd have to come back and finish it, but it'd keep her comment there so she remembers, oh, this is a good candidate.
That is correct. Yeah.
And can you adjust the comments
Yes.
each time you go in? Okay.
Any other questions? Jane?
Just FYI, what I do anytime I go through a stack of applicants is they kind of shuffle them into three piles. Oh yeah, and maybe. And you could just do that yourself. You know, you may not have a physical pile, but kind of three piles in your mind. Maybe you keep a list, and then you can go through and read other people's reviews and comments and compare them against your own and see if that affects what you think. I can think of a guy a number of years ago who applied to be a police chief, and he had information on his, personal information on his application materials that didn't belong there. And I had given him a huge thumb down. We hired him. He was excellent. So be you on your first pass through, but then be open to what all the rest of us have to say, and each of us needs to do that individually, because none of us knows all there is to know. And so we need to hear each other as well as voice our own concerns. But that first pass through is very much just a first pass through, and don't worry about your ratings and your comments and all that on your first pass through. Just do your thing, and then eventually put in your comments and your ratings so that we can all share with each other. Does that make sense? Cool.
Any other questions about me, Bev? No? And I'll be your contact for that. If you call Jill, she'll tell you to call me, so.
Any questions, any trouble with the computer or anything, just call these two and they'll help you out.
Yep. Not you, Mayor? Okay, so the next thing we wanted to talk about was the opportunity for you guys to provide suggestions for questions and or other assessments that we're going to use for the interview process. Some of you may be aware, but we did ask the community members to submit questions that they would like asked of the police department. We did receive 77 people did respond to that. Oh, no, I don't think so. Sorry. We did ask, our 77 people did respond to those. We just got that compiled list yesterday, so we haven't had a chance to review it, but we were pretty excited to see that much interest in that. So we'd also want you guys to have the same opportunity. So after today, I'm going to be sending out a Survey Monkey. You can see a kind of a copy of that, what it's going to look like in your binder as well. But what we're going to ask you to do is identify 10 traits or characteristics that you feel the next police chief should possess. And then also gives you an opportunity to, if you could ask one question, what would that be? So the purpose of doing this exercise is to kind of get a consensus of what it is that people are looking for, both amongst you as community, our selection committee members, and then as well as the community members that submitted questions, to come up with those assessments that we're going to use for the interview and assessment tools. The police department is also going to get a survey, so they also will have a voice. So just be aware that we're sending all kinds of things out, trying to get as much information and feedback as possible to become as inclusive as we can. So, any questions about that at all? No? Oh, one more thing I should point out. We do, if you guys can submit it no later than the 21st of July, that'll give us an opportunity to review all of that and come up with the interview questions and assessment tools we need. It shouldn't take very long to do so. All right, thank you.
All right, next we want to just highlight some key dates in our tentative schedule. That schedule is located in the schedule section of your binder. Again, emphasis on tentative because we understand we need to check with all of you to ensure your availability as well as we move forward in the process. So again, I just want to highlight some of those details. The full detailed schedule is in your binder, but some of the key dates that we want to talk about with your individual review of the applicants, we would ask that you complete that by the end of the day on July 23rd, those initial ratings. And then our next step will be to compile those ratings to determine who are our top candidates who will be invited to that first initial virtual interview as the first step of the assessment. Following that, the interviews, that first round of interviews are tentatively scheduled for August 5th and 6th, and will likely convene for a half day on each of those days. So again, if you can check your schedules and let Jen and I know your availability on those days, that would be great. We're hoping those days will work for all of you, and depending on the number of candidates who are selected to advance, that will help us determine whether we need both days and how much time will be scheduled. So please let us know your availability. From there, then, we would intend to hold the final assessment in August, end of August, the 19th and the 20th. Likely, this committee will be convened for a full day assessment on the 20th. We anticipate that the candidates would participate in tours and meet with individuals, with members from the Fargo Police Department on the 19th. Again, we'll be checking in with you on your availability for those dates, but that is the tentative schedule that we have planned currently. Are there any questions related to the schedule? Okay, a lot more detail included in the schedule so that you have an opportunity to see kind of in the background what's happening between those interviews and assessment days as well. But those are the key dates that we're working with right now. So at this point, we would like to open it up to any questions that you might have on any of the information that you've heard today, or any comments on the process or on this important selection.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? So this goes back to the interview question. So if anybody on the committee wants to submit questions, it's the 21st, that's the deadline? And is it also for the public? If they have a question, that's my question.
The public that time has already passed. Okay. So we've already collected those. Okay. And yes, for the committee to submit questions and those top 10 characteristics by the 21st would be great.
And then I have a question for Jill. In the past, then we selected the questions, but then it had to be the same for the interview for all the candidates. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that's correct. So once we compile all of those questions, we'll begin to develop the overall interview questions and assessment tools. And so when we convene to conduct the interviews, we'll go through a little bit of an orientation prior to that first interview. That portion is when we do get into really detailed scoring and rating of the candidates. So we start out at a wider view that is much more subjective, as you indicated, and then we really narrow and try to really quantify as we get into the interview and the assessment day. We quantify all of our impressions then based on the interview questions. So we will develop those questions. You will all have the opportunity, of course, for follow-up questions as well during the course of the interview as well as the assessment day. But we start with a common set of questions to be consistent with all of our candidates.
What dates and tasks do you anticipate us doing what in the next few weeks between now and the end of August, when we're going to gather and make choices, not only between candidates, but between questions to be asked, characteristics that we're gathering, and all those kinds of things? What expectations are you anticipating going forward?
So the key dates as we just move through the tentative schedule, July 21st is that deadline for you to submit your selections on what you see as the key leadership characteristics that we should, as a group. Okay, thank you. So August 5th will be the next time that we convene as a group. And that will be for those virtual interviews with the top candidates who are selected from your all initial review and rating. So really it's independent work between now and August 5th. And we will convene the committee probably 45 minutes to an hour ahead of our first interview so that we can go through an orientation on scoring and review all of the information at that time. So that's the August 5th and 6th are the next days that the committee will convene. And from there, then the following will be August 20th, based on the tentative schedule. So we'll check with all of you on availability.
Did you want to talk about we'd like all of them there, if possible? Or no?
On the assessment day?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Jen mentioned, our goal is to have everyone on the committee, of course, available for those assessment days. So we'll be in touch with you throughout this period of time to ensure that availability and make changes in the schedule as necessary.
So far, does that look okay to most most of us now, the 5th, 6th? Okay, good. You done?
I'm still not, I'm always a pain, guys, apologize. But I'm still not clear on which interview questions then that we're all submitting, who and when are those being selected as actual questions that will be asked?
Yeah, so our intention at this time is, again, we're gonna have those 3 sets of questions we'll have coming from the police department, coming from this committee, and coming from our community members at large. And so that would be the task of the HR team to compile. There are, what we're finding so far, there are common themes that those questions are surrounding. And so we plan then to put together a draft interview and assessment. At this time, our plan is to review those with the mayor and city administration to finalize. Because we are in an open meeting format, it would be very challenging for this committee in an open meeting to finalize those questions without our candidates knowing what questions they will be asked in our future assessment. So, we will be, though you all will have a voice in that in terms of submitting those important questions. Our job was really just to compile and determine which of the key characteristics that we want to assess throughout each step of the process.
Okay, got it.
So traditionally in the past, oftentimes when HR does selection, people come in and apply for a job, there's some questions that had been always to that. Tell us about a part in your career where you had to make a judgment or a decision, it went wrong, what did you do, how did you handle it? We're very specifically trying to catch all the questions for a police chief, so that's what the idea is behind it. And the 3 major elements is we've asked the community what are their questions, and those have compiled in almost 4 or 5 different pillars. We've asked the police force what are their questions, because they may have different issues that they have, and then we're asking the committee members. The idea is then to compile those in questions as questions to the candidates, and everyone would kind of have the same shot at them, but then it forms a little of the philosophy. So we as a committee feel certain things really need to be asked. That's what we'd hope you'd send in for us to do. So that's, each one of us might have a different idea what we want to do. Go ahead, Jason.
Do you have a rough idea, like how many questions will be part of the interview process? Was that addressed already?
It was not yet. We anticipate probably right around 8 to 10, 5 to 10 for the first initial interview. The assessment day, there will be several components involved in that overall assessment. An interview will just be one of those components that we would use to assess those candidates. Often there are roundtable discussions or potentially doing mock press conferences. So there are several components for that full day assessment that those candidates will participate in. And so all of your input and the communities and the police department's input will be used to form the tools and then ultimately the criteria for rating those assessments.
So it would go into almost the different parts that we rate them on. So we might rate them on qualifications, 5 for that or whatever. Each part will have a ranking. They do a press conference. You give them, here's what happened. A young boy got run over or something happened. Please do a press conference. And there was something that the police officer did wrong. And you try to see them in those different situations. So it's an ops that you get to see what they do. So typically it's broken into sections and we vote basically. So somebody may be very qualified, We really didn't like how they handled the press. They did a terrible job with the press. We felt really bad about it. Or they had some experiences in their job that didn't work well. So this committee then very selectively, it breaks out. And as we go through the interviews, you'll figure it out. You kind of see there's the flow, and here's what happened. We had a candidate at one time that talked too much. I mean, every answer was this long, so we could never get through it. And a lot of us wrote down talks too much. But I mean, it's more objective where we all rank and do it. And when we had last police chief, it does break out. You can really tell the different ones. Our candidate came in with a strategic plan that went for 5 years. It was 20 pages long, well thought out, well briefed. So you'd say, great strategic plan. The next one came in and said, trust me. So it kind of goes what you have to do. I want to thank you all for volunteering and going to give your time to this. We're done before an hour, which I'm pleased to have happen. I think we've given you the rough outline of what we're going to do here, but we're going to pick the best police chief for the community of Fargo. And this is truly, we're trying to make this that we all have a very big part in this, is for picking that candidate and that chief. So good luck on doing all your reviews. And please, the only other thing I'd ask is just follow the times and the guides, because we want everybody's scoring in there. We want everybody's voice in there. So it's a lot of work, I understand that, but I think we'll get some great results. So thank you all for volunteering, and we're done for the day. Thank you.